Hey everyone, welcome back to NDC. We're going to be continuing our SwiftUI and macOS development course. So last time we created a notes app and it was pretty good. We could save, we could load, we could save as to documents, or even reveal where the sandbox file is. This time we're going to be scaling up a little bit. We're going to be upgrading our app to use JSON. This is going to allow us to have multiple notes. You can see here I just have a couple examples and we can even navigate between the two. JSON is a structured format that lets us store arrays and full objects. So we can create a new note. We could even give it a title. Let's call this one cool note. Hello again. Right, we can save all, we can even reload. We can still do our save as. This time it'd be saving it as a little JSON as well as reveal where we are. So this is going to allow us to have way more structure in our app as well as multiple notes. So this is the next step in persistence. Just as a note, if you're joining on episode number 2, be sure to check out episode number 1. If you want to be using the same template I'm using, you can fork or clone it from my GitHub, link in the description below. Otherwise, let's go ahead and dive on in and upgrade our notes app. Okay, make sure you've loaded up your first version of the Notes app. And we're going to actually be starting off by creating a new file. You can do so by pressing the plus in the bottom left of the project navigator or right-clicking. We're going to be doing new empty file. We're going to be calling this one note.swift. This is where we're going to be defining a data model called note. The first thing we're going to be doing in this new file is importing Foundation, the capital F. This is going to import Apple's Foundation framework, which provides essential features for Swift apps. So things like using dates, strings, files, networking, and even a data type that's known as UUID. Without it, we couldn't use many built-in tools, and we're going to be using some of those today. So we need to give our structure a name. So I'm going to call this one note, and this is going to be the way that we can formulate all our notes to essentially follow a pattern. Now after the note, I'm going to add a colon, and this is what we want our note to conform to. The first one is going to be identifiable, then we'll add a comma. Identifiable is a protocol mostly used in SwiftUI. It requires each instance to have an ID, but this is going to allow Swift to be able to tell one item apart from the other. So for note 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., right? It allows it to kind of just differentiate. Then we're going to be adding Codable. This allows us to easily encode, so convert to JSON and decode, load from JSON, any of that data. It actually combines two separate protocols, encodable and decodable. So we're encoding and decoding. This is going to be important as we're using JSON data. And then we're going to also be including hashable. Hashable makes it so our type is storable in a set or usable as a dictionary key. Essentially, we're going to be using it to add tags to the different notes so we can navigate between them on the left menu. It just means that Swift can turn our object into a hash value, which is a number that uniquely represents it. From here, we're going to create some variables. So the first variable I like to create is the ID, which is going to equal the UUID. This is essentially a unique identifier. It's super long and unique to ensure that no two are the exact same. Think of it like a unique variable or code that's given. Then we're going to create a variable of title, and this is going to be a string value. This is going to be the title value of the note, and it is required. We're then going to also have a body, and that's also going to be a string. So we're now going to have a title for our note, and our body is just going to be, the main text of the note. So this is our note struct. Anytime we're referring to the note, it's going to expect to have a UUID, which will be created for us, the title, and the body. We're going to be going back to our content view, and this is where we're going to be spending pretty much the rest of our time. We're going to be making some changes in order to enhance our app. We're still going to be including some state private variables, but we're going to be changing a lot of ours here. We're going to create a new state private var, and this is going to be our notes. And this is going to conform within the square brackets to an array of note. Essentially, we're saving all of our notes. By default, it's going to be empty, so the first time the user loads up our app, they're not going to have any populated notes. We're then also going to create a state private var for the selected note. If you saw in my example, users will be able to click on any one of those notes and be brought to that exact one. This is also going to conform to the note, but we're going to add a question mark, basically saying that this is an optional value. By default, it's going to equal nil. We're not going to have a note selected by default. We're then also going to add one more state private var, and this is going to be for the file message, which is going to equal an empty string. Just like how we had the save message, we're going to have a file message now. Okay, for our file URL, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently because now we're going to be saving it as a JSON as opposed to a TXT or text file. So in our return docs appending path component, we're just going to change this extension to be JSON or JSON. Okay, now in our content view, let's go ahead and update our functions in order to handle this new JSON formatting. So we're going to scroll down and we can find our old functions. Again, they're typically after the variable body of some view. Before we go ahead and change the previous functions, let's actually create a couple new ones. And the first function I'm going to be creating is actually binding. This is going to be able to find indexes of notes with the same ID. This way, if I'm editing, let's say note number 1, I only want that to be happening with note number 1. I don't want to edit note number 7, 300, 500. We want to make sure that we're getting the exact one. Within the brackets, we're actually going to be using a parameter. Parameters allow us to have specifications. So in this case, we're going to be grabbing a note, which is then going to conform to our capital N note. This note down here refers to the specific ones. This capital N is looking at the entire structure. Then we're going to do return. We could do so by creating an arrow on our keyboard with the dash and then the greater than sign. On my font, it kind of creates a little code arrow. So we're then going to have a binding, and then with our angled brackets, we're going to have the capital N note. We're then going to go ahead and add our braces. So again, we want to find the index of the note with that exact same ID. We're going to do a guardlet for that. We're going to have our index equal the notes.firstIndex. We're going to then choose the where because we want to access its location. Within the where, we're actually going to add a brace, and we're going to do our $0.id double equals the note.id. We'll then include an else. So if the note can't be found, this should never happen, but we'll actually force a crash with a fatal error and a note not found. Okay, and we're just missing the return statement of our function, and we're going to be returning a two-way binding to the note at the found index. So we'll return, do our $notes, and then within the square brackets, our index. Awesome, and because we're going to have multiple notes, let's also create a function to add a note. So we want to create a new note with a default title and an empty body. We could do so with let new note equal the note, and I like to do the title and body autofill. We don't need an ID, that's automatically going to be assigned. So we'll do new note, and within the body we can include like, hey, start your note here. Otherwise we can just include an empty string. We then want to actually append this new note to the list. So we're going to look at our notes, which is that list of notes, and we're going to use the .append, and within the append brackets, we're going to be putting through that new note we had just created. And then, let's also set our current selected note to be the new note. I don't want to press new note and then have to go click on that new note. So let's force it to move the selected note to be the new note. Just some good user experience. Okay, one more new function before we update the old ones. And this is going to be a function to actually delete the note. And since we want to delete specific notes, we're going to be doing it at an offset. And that's going to be based off of the index set. So we essentially need to track which IDs are being deleted so we can update the selection after removal. So we'll create a deleted IDs. And this is going to conform to a set of UUID within our angled brackets, which will be a set, and we're going to be looking at the offsets.map. We'll then add our brace, and we're going to be looking at all of our notes. So we'll do the notes, our square brackets, the $0, outside of the angled brackets, the .id. So we've tracked the IDs, and we can update the selection right after removal. Then we want to remove the notes at the provided offsets. So we can do so with the notes.remove. And for the location, we're going to change this to be at offsets, and then we're going to put the offsets through. So we're going to identify it and remove that specific note. Next is if the selected note was deleted, we then want to move selection to the first remaining note. I don't want my selection to remain on that deleted note. Wouldn't really make too much sense. Can't have something that doesn't exist be selected. So we're going to do an if let selected to equal the selected note. And then we'll add a comma and we'll be looking at the deleted IDs dot contains selected ID. So selected.id. And then our brace, then we'll have our selected note equal the notes dot first. So first is going to put it to that first element. Okay, outside of the if let, we'll then want to call our function of save note right afterwards. All right, now we get into the meat and potatoes of really changing this up. So I am just going to go ahead and delete everything within these two braces to just start from scratch, but there will be a lot of repeated concepts, especially that we're starting off with a do. So first we're going to encode the notes array as JSON data. So I like to just say let data, and we're going to have this equal the try and JSON encoder. Now this is something that's built in, it's amazing, and we can use the .encode in order to return a JSON encoded representation of the data that we supply. Well, the data we're going to be supplying are the notes, and we're doing the multiple notes, that entire list. Then we're going to have our data.write. From here, we still want to put it through to the file URL. So we'll do the file URL we created so long ago. And for the options, we have a few different ones. Use the square braces. I like to just do atomic. We can see here that this is an option to write data to an auxiliary file first, and then replace the original file with the auxiliary file when the write completes, essentially just overriding any saves. This way we don't have any partial writes. Okay, and then let's have our file message equal saved. And then we'll do our clearing of a message with the dispatch queue again. So dispatch queue.main.async after. For the deadline, we'll do 2 seconds again. So now +2, and we don't need the execute. Instead, we'll add our brace and we'll have our file message be cleared by setting it to be an empty string. Okay, we're just getting an error here, because we can see any errors thrown are not taken care of. So at the end of the do, we'll add our catch. And from here, we'll just have our file message equal, and maybe, save failed. We can also print the error if we want with the error.localize description. Okay, let's next tackle our load note. We don't have that much to change. We can leave the manager as well, as we want to still be checking whether the files exist on the disk or not. So if the manager files and they do exist within our kind of do braces here, we're going to be copying our data. So data is going to equal the data, and we're going to be looking at the contents of the file URL. Then we want to decode the data into an array of notes. So our notes is going to equal the try JSON decoder this time. So previously we're using the encoder, now we're using the decoder. So we're also going to be using the .decode. So for the type, it's actually going to be an array of note. And from, well, it's going to be from that data that we're pushing through, which is the contents of the file URL. Next, we want to restore the selection if possible. Otherwise, we'll be picking the first note. We can do so with an if let. The selected can equal the selected note, comma notes dot contains, and we'd be looking at the selected. If that's the case, we don't need actually any code. It'll just keep the current selection. So I'm just writing a comment with the 2 slashes. But we can handle the case that it's not happening, else our selected note would equal the first one available. So selected note equals notes.first. So something you might get for an error is for your note, you may need to be making the note.self so it can refer to the exact one. And that should fix it. Okay, next one to update is the save note as. We're just definitely going to be changing this for the string value. Instead of new note, we'll call it notes.json. And instead of the .plain text, we'll be doing the .json. And similarly for the do, we're going to be doing some JSON data instead of just writing it to the specific spot. So we've seen this before. Let our data equal try. All right, guess, are we going to do JSON encoding or decoding? It's going to be JSON encoding. We're going to do our encode of the notes. Then we'll try to have our data.write. And we're going to be going to the URL. And we're actually also going to be including some of those options. For the options, again, we're going to be doing the .atomic so we can properly overwrite. But let's have our file message also update and say saved to, and we can interpolate the URL.lastPath component, essentially indicating where the file was saved. And I think last time we actually forgot our dispatch queue.main.async after on this one. So we're going to have our now plus 2 seconds. From there, we'll clear that message. So our file message would equal nothing, an empty string. We shouldn't need to make any changes to our reveal and finder as we didn't specify anything with a text file. Essentially, it was just revealing where this was on the Mac. Okie dokie, let's scroll all the way up. Now, I would like to include a text field for title. I'd also like a list of all the notes with their title that we can actually press on or delete. Pressing on it should take us to that entry, and deleting it, well, should delete it. So I want to initially have an H stack that takes up the entire left side of the screen with all of the list titles. So I'm going to right click on my V stack and I'm going to choose embed. And this is going to take that entire VStack and wrap it on into a container. Then we can put our H stack. This is a great way to make nesting work and allow you to make custom designs without having to, juggle where your braces are all the time. We can actually just create a list by typing out list and including a selection. For this selection, we're actually going to just use the binding or the $sign and have our selected note. We don't need the content here. Instead, for our content, we're going to add a brace and then add for each. This is going to loop through all of the selected data. What data do we want to go through? Well, I want to go through all the notes. We'll then add a brace and say note in. So for every one of these notes, what do we want to display? Well, I want to have some text, and that's going to be the note.title. Essentially, I want to display the string value of all of their titles. I'd also recommend putting a line limit, maybe 1, especially for any longer titles, as well as a tag. Remember we had made those hashable, so we're able to kind of refer to them. The tag's going to allow us to have those notes be clickable to navigate to them. At the end of the for each, I also want it to be deletable. So we'll do the on delete. I want it to perform, well, the delete note. We don't need the at because we're going to be able to select each one of those notes and call upon that delete function. You can also give our list some specifications. In this case, I'm going to add a frame with a width because I just want it to kind of be like a side panel on the left, and let's make it 200. Okay, we definitely need a lot more than just our text editor that we're going to be having, and we also want to handle any cases for when we have a selected note or when we don't have a note, right? If a user freshly installs our app, we want to be able to say, hey, create a new note. We can do a if let statement within our VStack and say if let note equals the selected note. Well, I want to have the binding for that specific note. We'll add our brace. We'll have our text field. Text fields are like the text editor, but they're just one line. great for things like titles, usernames, or passwords. Within the text field, we can actually add a string value of a placeholder text, which is just like grayed out text, and as soon as you start typing, that placeholder goes away. So we'll have our title, and then for our text, this is going to be the binding for, and we want to have that very specific note. Outside of those brackets, we're telling it to be for that note and the specific title of that note. We then add font. I'm going to set mine to be headline so it's a little bit bigger. Then we can actually copy and paste our text editor on in, although for the text value, we're going to do it the way we did above with the binding for that note and then the dot body. Also, I'm going to remove the border as it was kind of clipping a little bit. Something you can also do on macOS, because people can resize the windows. If you want something to be a minimum height, you can change it to be min height with the lowercase m and capital H. All right, after the if let, we can say else. So the case that there's no selected note, we can just display a message to the users to say select or create a note. And we can have the foreground style to change the color, and let's make it gray so it kind of fades in a little bit. Something I'm also going to be doing is for our action of saving the note, since we want to save all of them at the same time, we're already doing that, but we'll just make it more clear to the user that we're saving all of the notes. Okay, and if we look at our buttons, save all, load, save as, reveal, I don't think we have a button for new note yet. So let's quickly create that. So we'll have our action, the new note, which is a function we had created before. Oh, sorry, it's add note. There we go, add note. Let me go ahead and add our label. Let's have it be new note. And for this system image, let's go ahead, go back to our object library, and I'm going to do a plus sign for this one, definitely. You know what, this document plus one will probably be fine. Okay, let's go ahead and save this, run it, and see our beautiful 2.0 Notes app with JSON in action. Okay, I might have to change the color of our label on new note, but let's go ahead and press the new note. We can see here, maybe it wasn't found. Hold on. Oh, because it's image, not system image. My bad. System image. Okay, let's just quickly, let's go ahead and run that again. I was like, how's that not found? I literally copied it from the object library. There we go. Okay, let's create our new note. But when it's created, it just has a title of new note. We also, in our text field, have that placeholder where it has title, and you'll see as soon as we start typing, it goes away. Okay, I'm going to do test JSON 1. Hello world x1. Amazing. Let's go ahead and save all. Let's go ahead and create another note. And you'll notice we're able to actually click on these notes. So let's make another one, and we'll do test JSON 2. Goodbye world. I just want them to be different. Go ahead and save. Amazing. If I make changes, I can load it. And there we go. You can see that it goes back to normal. Let's go ahead and reveal this file real quick. We can see it's in that really cursed, I mean, I'm calling it cursed, but you know, that app sandbox. We still have our old notes.txt. To open up the JSON, you should be able to right click open with. You can open it in Xcode. That will totally work, or text edit, or Visual Studio Code. Now, something that's really cool is when this does load, we'll actually be able to see that UUID, that unique identifier. Like I said, it's kind of unreadable by the humans, but it makes sense for the computer, so that works. So this is what our JSON looks like. Pretty cool stuff, but it allows us to create and have as many notes as we'd like. JSON's also pretty lightweight. So if we create as many notes as we want, we can save them, and we can even still save as. And let's call this one new JSON notes in our documents. Open up Finder, go to our real documents, and we can see our new JSON notes. With all of our additions. So this is another way how you can be saving on macOS. All right, and that was saving with JSON. We're able to now have multiple notes with different bodies, titles. You can even click and go between these, saving them, creating new notes, even having a little message when no notes were found or had yet to be created. So this is the next step in persistence and saving on your system. JSON's great. You can have as many fields as you want. Maybe try including a date, a footnote, or anything else you can think that your Notes app would need, and add it to the Notes structure. Next time, we're actually going to be taking a look at Swift data within SwiftUI apps on macOS. Swift data is my preferred way of doing things because we actually get cool access to things like CloudKit. So if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one for part 3 of our macOS series. Remember, this is available as a YouTube course, so you can track your progress. And any completed examples are available on my GitHub, found in the description below. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you next time for Swift Data.